Welcome to week 3 of the Mountain Valley News Pigskin Preview. I'm Monk Blevins.
This is Logan Wright.
And we're back with you this week to break down high school football and talk a little college football. And we are so glad that you're tuning in and being with us tonight. So let's just go ahead and start talking about last week's games, Logan. What game stood out the most to you?
Oh, you have so many upsets looking back at not just the high school games, at college too. You know, several ranked teams got knocked off this week by, little league opponents. Is what I like to call them.
Absolutely. College football was crazy this week, and so was high school. Looking back at my picks, I think I went 8-4, and I was really worried that it was going to be worse than that. I'm telling you, it was a crazy week of football. Well, let's go ahead and start. Our first game we're going to break down, we talk about, is the Plainview Bears. They traveled up to North Sand Mountain, and they lost that game 10-7. And man, a battle of defenses.
Definitely. Kind of seemed like neither offense could get anything going throughout. Luckily, one of them did. North Sand got started a little late than most people would like to see, but it really was just a battle of defense. We've talked about these schools in previous weeks, how great their defenses was, and we've seen that with the score this week.
Oh, absolutely. You start talking about defense, and especially on Plainview's side, you look at Wooten at linebacker, Farmer at linebacker, at Dylan Scott at defensive end, and so I know those guys had a great football game. Juan Marquez had another good game, I understand, at running back. Couldn't punch anything in the end zone. Well, I did think they did get one in the end zone. Bailey Dukes had a decent game. My understanding was they just couldn't hang on to the football, and it's just one of those crazy nights where the offense just couldn't get going, And I think, we spoke about that a little bit. Plainview's offense, it seems like it takes them at least a half to get going.
I think that's really been their problem so far, is they're not, like, even with the Sandrock game, they didn't put Sandrock away until the fourth quarter. It was still, I believe, 7-7 at the beginning of the fourth quarter, and it ended up being 30-7. Because once they start clicking, they really go at it, and everything runs smooth, and they seem to put up a lot of points very quickly. Their problem is they're going to have to get to that transition a lot faster than they've been doing.
Yeah. Well, I know that was a great hard-nosed football game, and somebody has to win, somebody has to lose, and so I know it was a great football game. Of course, it was a big region game, just like it was last year, and this North Sand Mountain team, after they beat Plainview last year, man, they rolled into a region championship, and so who knows what this game will do for them again this year. Hopefully Plainview regroups this week and gets ready for another big region game next week, so we'll see how that goes. The next game, we have the Valley Head Tigers. They traveled to Coosa Christian, and man, they lost a heartbreaker down there. It was 7-6. Valley Head had the ball and actually fumbled. Coosa Christian picks it up, runs it down to Valley Head's 15. They move the ball down close to the goal line, and the quarterback sneaks it in to score. And of course, they hit their extra point, and they win it 7-6.
So. That kicker had ice in his veins to hit that extra point, though. But Valley Head, they have a lot of stuff they can take away from this game. Their defense played really well. I think it's really tough to ask your defense to stop another offense from scoring after you've just turned the ball over and they have all the momentum and they're already in your red zone. It's when they just first start off. So, you can't really look at their defense giving up a touchdown there and really blame the defense for that game. That's really more on the offense. You hate to lose, especially a close game like that, giving up a fumble and letting them return it. But they were that close to closing that game.
Oh, absolutely. Coach Knapp had made the statement afterwards. He said, our defense played extremely well, but he said, our offense, they're going to have to improve for us to be successful going forward. So I know Ethan Harrison had a great football game. He had 2 interceptions. He scored the only touchdown they had on the night, so congratulations to him. Next, we have Geraldine. They traveled up to Pisgah, and man, did Geraldine put a whipping on Pisgah, 38-12, and I don't think either one of us saw this game coming.
No, you could have asked me before that game, and I would have taken the bet that Geraldine was not only going to win. Pisgah was not only going to win that game, that they were going to win big. I didn't see Geraldine even competing in this game, and they showed me up. So hats off to Coach Waldrop and the Bulldogs, because whatever they're doing is working.
Oh, absolutely. One of the things you look at Pisgah, they had 5 turnovers. They fumbled the ball 4 times. They threw an interception. And, in a close football game or with 2 good football teams that are evenly matched like Pisgah and Geraldine, where, the turnovers is the difference in the football game. Geraldine, David White ran for 95 yards on 17 carries and had 2 touchdowns. Austin Willoughby had 88 yards and 2 touchdowns on 13 carries. So they were able to move the football. And, looking at that yardage, the one thing that we had talked about and the one thing that the coach had talked about at the beginning of the season was they were young on the offensive line and maybe a little small on the offensive line. But it sounds like they were able to open up some holes for these running backs on Friday night.
Well, they are very young, but one thing they do have is Miles Gwynn. Let me tell you, he is a beast. I know he's a transfer from Plainview, and he was huge when he was at Plainview. This kid is an athlete. He could probably go play college ball if he wanted to. Reminiscent a couple years back when Geraldine had that huge offensive line, and he was part of that, and he's the only one that's still there. They don't have as much size as they usually do, but trust me, he makes up for it.
Yeah. Next game we'll talk about is, Ider traveled down to Collinsville. Again, this was another one of those games that I think we both expected the Ider Hornets to win the football game. And Collinsville came ready to play in this game, and they actually upset, I guess if you want to call it that, the Ider Hornets 27-6. Caleb Jones, a running back that we hadn't heard a whole lot from, he had 52 yards rushing for the Panthers. And Grant Jones was 9 for 11 for 166 yards and 2 touchdowns in that game. So.
Yes, I believe that the Collinsville Panthers are Mountain Valley News Team of the Week.
Correct? Oh, absolutely. That is correct. And Grant Jones was their Mountain Valley News Player of the Week. So yes. Congratulations to Collinsville and Grant Jones on a great night. And also we have to congratulate Coach Ernie Willingham. He got his 100th victory on Friday night. And I know he didn't want to talk much about that. He called in on our show, and he said, yeah, I understand that's what they tell me, that I got my 100th victory. He acted like he didn't know about it, and he may not have. But I know to him it's all about the kids. It's not about, what he's doing. So, but that is a huge thing for him, and I congratulate him on that 100th victory. So next, we talk about the Fife Red Devils and Asbury come calling, and and we felt like there wouldn't be much of a game to this. And when I say that, we're not throwing anything at Asbury. This is their first year of football. But, you're playing probably the best 2A team in the state of Alabama.
Yes.
Fife rode up 441 total yards as they won that game 46-7. I know Kilpatrick had a great game, and I'm sure Anderson had a great game, and Benefield had a great game, and the defense obviously had a pretty good game too. So what's your thoughts?
We talk about Fife week in and week out, how loaded they are with athletes. One thing that we have to realize is all these running backs, Seth Benefield, Peyton Anderson, Kilpatrick, all these are great running backs, but most of these kids are even better defensive players.
Oh, absolutely.
And Fife is so loaded. They have so many subs. I mean, they're subbing. It's like an NFL team. They're subbing people in every play. And like you said, they are probably the best 2A team in the state. And can you imagine it being your third ball game of your life? It's the third ball game at Asbury, and they have to travel to Fife and play Fife.
Oh my gosh! And I would have been scared to death to even walk out on the field. So, but this Fife team, we talk about them each week. They've got a great football team, and the quarterback from last year who was hurt, Mashburn. Hopefully he will be back in a couple of weeks, and he was hurt during practice, and he just makes them better. Mm-hmm. So next we want to talk about the Fort Payne Wildcats. They traveled down the south side, and man, this turned out to be a great football game. Southside came back and scored and went ahead and wound up winning the game 34-31. But this Fort Payne team, I think they grew up a little bit in this football game.
I agree with you. A lot of people, they didn't count Fort Payne to even be in this game, and I was kind of one of them. But I don't think you can ever count out a team coached by Paul Ellis. I think they're very well coached, and I think that's one reason this game didn't get ugly. I think they really showed a lot by showing up and competing like they did. They made a game out of it, and they didn't come away with the victory, but they were very close, and I think that gives them something to build off of next year. I think what Fort Payne is really needing right now is a player to step up. They don't have that key offensive player that, 3rd and 1, this is who we're giving it to. We can trust him with it. I think that player really needs to step up, whether it be Coach Ellis' son in the quarterback or they have some talented running backs. They always have a ton of talented skill players. But somebody needs to step up for this Wildcat team.
Oh, absolutely. You start talking about Fort Payne and you think about last year. Desmond Turner. They could always count on
Yes.
him when they needed a couple of yards. They did have a player, Colton Wales. This is another young player who stepped in, had 57 yards and a touchdown, or had a 57-yard touchdown. Let me correct that. J.C. Grote had another great game at running back, and of course Tyler Ellis. He continues to improve and improve. He's a young quarterback. You start talking about, we seem like when we talk about Tyler Ellis at quarterback, we think of him as a quarterback who's been there for a long time.
Yes.
He started as a ninth grader last year, so he's still young and still learning. But this team, you can tell that they improved this week, and they hung in there tough with a good Southside team. So, I think we'll just see this Fort Payne team get better and better each week. Next, we have Section. They traveled down to Gaston, and this game at halftime, Section led the game 8-7, and Dylan Cooper had a 15-yard touchdown pass that he caught from Ryan Gray, and you're thinking, wow, this Section team may be about to win this ball game. Well, Gaston comes out in the second half and puts up 30 points on them and wins the game 38-8. So this Section team, they need a win so bad.
Not just for this team, I think for this program. The town of Section loves football, and they're still behind this team 100%.
Oh, absolutely.
And I think this game last week just came down to not being used to winning. They had the opportunity to win, like you said, they led at halftime, and I feel like personally, anytime you lead at the half, the game should be over. But they're not really used to winning. They got down a little bit, and I don't want to say they laid down, but it's kind of what happened. They let this team just get up on them huge, and that's something you can't do if you want to have a successful season.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I know they're going to be working hard this week. They've got an opportunity maybe of getting that first victory this week. So we'll see how that goes. Next, in what probably was one of the better football games in the area last week, Sylvania traveled over to Cedar Bluff. Cedar Bluff comes in and played for the state championship last year in Class 1A, and had tons of returning starters on that team. And this Sylvania team hung with them. Mm-hmm. But the thing that Sylvania did that, we had talked about this all last year, and we were talking about this year, it seemed like they had got better. They jumped off sides 8 times. They fumbled 5 times. Mm-hmm. When you play a good football team, you just can't do that.
You can't expect to win. I mean, they were basically playing the returning state runner-ups because most of their starters were returning. I think it was unreal. We talked about that, how many they got back. But, a lot of people still expected Sylvania to win. I know their coaches did. But one thing they cannot do, we saw it happen week in and week out last year, was turnovers. If you want to win a game like this, you have to win in penalty yards and you have to win on the turnover ratio. Three things they lost at was the penalty yards, the score, and the turnover ratio.
Oh, absolutely. They lost that game 22-15. Hung in with them, had chances to win that ball game. But, again, just like you say, when you're playing the defending runner-up state champion in the state championship game and they have all of their players coming back, you can't have those turnovers and you can't have those penalties against a good football team like that. That will get you beat every time. So hopefully they make amends this week and work on some of those turnovers and on some of those errors they made and get back on the winning track. The last game we want to talk about from last week, you had Crossville traveled over to Scottsboro, and we've talked a lot about this Scottsboro football team, and they put up 63 on Crossville. It was 63-21. But this Crossville football team didn't play a bad football game.
No.
They played a good football team.
Yes, that's exactly what happened. You look at the Nix kid at quarterback, Bo Nix. I believe he had 298 yards himself on offense. Those are crazy stats. If your quarterback puts up 300 yards by himself, 9 times out of 10 you're going to win the football game.
Oh, absolutely.
Even if they didn't have an amazing running back, they do. This kid is so talented. I believe he's already signed with Troy University. And I think he put up like 150 yards himself. They have 2 great offensive weapons. And, one thing I was really impressed with in this game, I know they didn't win, but Crossville just keeps impressing me week in and week out. They seem like they just continue to improve and they continue to become a better football team. And it's really hard for everyone to see that because they're in this really tough 5A region I believe they have Arab next week, which is going to be another tough game for them. They're not a bad team. They're just playing better teams, if that makes sense.
Oh, absolutely. Coach Miles Holcomb has done a great job getting these kids to buy into this program. Gannon Pointer was 18 of 28 for 182 yards. He ran for 2 touchdowns, and he threw for another touchdown. And when you're playing a normal team, if I can say that, you probably got a chance of winning the football game with those stats. But, you're playing Scottsboro, who is loaded.
Yes.
And like you said, this Nix kid is unbelievable. And, you look at that score, 63-21, you're probably going to see a lot more of those 63 points put up on some other teams from Scottsboro. So, Crossville, I think you're right. They are improving. I think they've got a shot to win some football games. And, again, they probably play in one of the toughest regions in 5A that you could be playing in right now. So, you can see the improvement in this Crossville football team. So, and I think that's a big statement for what Miles Holcomb has done at Crossville this year. Well, we've talked about some of the games from this week. Let's talk a little bit about college football. We haven't mentioned that. We had. What was a surprise game for you in the college ranks this week?
I know the Ole Miss-Florida State game. That game, a lot of people picked it either way, but I went with Florida State, and their new quarterback, I believe his last name is Francois.
Yes.
I mean, they're saying he's the next Jameis Winston, and he might be. This kid is the real deal. He is a 100% athlete. He came out a little shaky in the first quarter, but, as the game progressed, so did he, and you really saw that as a player. And keep in mind, this kid was playing, I believe he was redshirted. Now, he wasn't playing high school last time, but a year before that, he was. And he didn't get to play in any games last year. And coming out, as a freshman and playing like that, I think that Florida State has a lot to look forward to in him.
Oh, absolutely. A couple of games that stand out in my mind, Houston and Oklahoma, this Houston Cougar team. And we knew they were good.
Yeah.
We just didn't know how good they were, but they manhandled a number 3 ranked Oklahoma team this past weekend, and from everything I'm hearing now, and I'm sure the rankings are probably out by now. I don't know, but I think this Houston team probably going to wind up in the top 10, maybe even in the top 5 this week. So that game wasn't a surprise to me, but it was I thought Oklahoma probably was a little better than Houston, but they proved me wrong. The other game that I thought was a huge game, and I felt like they had to win for this coach to be able to hang around another year, and that was the Texas Longhorns.
Yes.
And, they came out and played a great football game against Notre Dame. The thing went in overtime, and I think they wound up winning it by 2 points, maybe 50-48. But starting a true freshman quarterback, and he did a phenomenal job.
Honestly, that quarterback impressed me more than any other quarterback. Even Kelly from Ole Miss, I thought that the Texas quarterback played the best game, especially coming in like that as a freshman, and he really managed the game well. And another game I don't know if you got to watch it or not, was the UCLA game. It went into overtime, UCLA and Texas A&M. I thought that was a really great game too.
Yeah, that I did see some. I just saw parts of that game. Was very impressed with Chubb coming back from his knee injury, and he rushed for 222 yards, and Georgia got a big win over North Carolina. And that was this North Carolina team, their defense is a very good defense. Former head coach from Auburn, Gene Chizik, is the defensive coordinator for them, and he had that team ready. But congratulations, Kirby Smart, getting his first victory with the Georgia Bulldogs, and just being able to see Chubbs come back from that devastating injury last year and having a great football game. That means a lot. We talk about Alabama. They started out a little slow, but when they got going, they got to rolling.
Exactly. Their new quarterback, I believe his last name's Hurt. I remember him coming off the sideline, his first play, says Hut, takes the ball, goes to hand it off, fumbles. I said, I don't like him, take him out. Don't want to see him again. But, after that, he really settled down, and I thought he really played like a college quarterback. I know he got picked off once in the second half, but that's going to happen. You're playing against USC. They have 5 stars just like Alabama has 5 stars. I'm glad he got that pick out of the way now, so we don't have to worry about that one for the rest of the season.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, and like you say, you know, this Southern Cal team was ranked number 20, so they're not a slouch of a football team. And this Alabama team, you know, laid up 52 points on them, so that's a pretty good day's work. You know, we talk about Auburn, you know, Auburn and Clemson, and I tell you what, this was a great football game. You know, Auburn had opportunities to win this football game. Their defense kept them in that game all night long.
Yes.
You know, they were shutting down probably the Heisman Trophy winner for this year, and the quarterback Watson, I think is his name. So
I feel like the question for Auburn is not the defense. I feel like their big question, just as it was last year, is the quarterback situation. You know, I believe they started Sean White, and he came in, and, you know, he didn't really do anything that impressive. And they brought in their new quarterback, and, you know, he didn't really show up either. So I think that's going to be the thing. I think what they're going to have to do is just pick a quarterback and just let him get his feet under him and just ride with him all season, ride or die with whoever it is.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're correct. I think, you know, if they can get that quarterback situation settled, this Auburn team may be a little better than people are thinking. So there you go. That was some of the games, some highlights from last week. And, you know, now we're going to get into this week's games. And, you know, we talk about Crossville. You know, Arab will be traveling up to Crossville this week in a big, you know, Crossville is 1-1, Arab is 1-1. This is a huge region match for both teams. So, you know, what's your thoughts on what would Crossville have to do to maybe pull off a big win against Arab this week?
Well, you know, I'm not going to count Crossville out just because how they've been improving week in and week out. And we see it every year. I don't want to know if Geraldine was the one for this year or not, where we really see a team that we didn't think could win and pull a huge upset. You know, Crossville has a potential to win this game. Arab is a very tough team. I know they're 1-1 right now, but usually this is a great team. Coach Gilbert always has this team in, you know, where they play really, really well and they play together. And I feel like their record is going to just continue to improve the more we go into the season.
Yeah, I think you're right. This Crossville team, though, you know, I've been very impressed with what the coach has done with this Crossville team this year, and you know, how they're improving. You know, and the Pointer kid seems to get better and better each week, and you know, he's the real deal at quarterback for them. And you know, I think this game turns out to be a little bit closer than maybe what some people might think. You know, it's going to be a great football game, and I know Crossville is excited about playing at home with an opportunity to get that second win. You know, man, what a huge win it could be for them if they could upset Arab this week. Mm-hmm. You know, next we got Sandrock will be traveling to Ider. You know, this Ider team comes in after, you know, what would be a disappointing loss down at Collinsville last week. And, you know, I think this Ider team probably, you know, I mean, they were in the game at halftime. Collinsville came out in the second half ready to play, and I'm not sure what happened with the Ider. I think, you know, just talking to Coach Ernie Willingham, they were able to get on the ends, and with some of their speed, you know, Dallas Reed and some of those guys that has got some wheels on them that can fly, and sounds like they were able to hit those corners and you know, and put some points on the board against Ider. But this Ider team really, really needs a win this week. So what's your thoughts on Sandrock and Ider?
Well, I think this is a really good Ider team, you know, coached by Coach Tinker. He always has his teams they're always playing great. I don't want to say their offense is a little one-dimensional, and I feel like Collinsville really keyed in on that in the second half because they have a great running game. Their passing game is kind of lacking right now. It's not very good. It's just not there.
Yeah.
So this Sandrock team, I watched them play Plainview. They were having some issues with conditioning. Seems like they were cramping up a lot, and they're having some injuries. I think they really hopefully they're in better shape. They've played into shape, is what we like to say, you know, closer to the season. I think this can be a really close game. I know my girlfriend's actually from Sandrock, and we were arguing the other day because I thought Ider was going to win the game, but she informed me I was wrong. I don't know anything about football. So I think this game could go either way.
Yeah, I think this will be a great matchup. And again, you know, I think Sandrock's coming off of a big win last week. And, of course, Ider's coming off a big loss. So could be a great matchup. Next, we've got Pisgah will be traveling down to Plainview this week. And, you know, it's Plainview's homecoming. They're coming in after taking a hard loss to North Sand Mountain 10-7. Pisgah, you know, took a beating against Geraldine. And both of these programs, they really need a win this week. This is another big region matchup between Plainview and Pisgah. So what's your thoughts? What does Plainview need to do, and what does Pisgah need to do to pull off a victory this week?
I think number one for Plainview is to get that offense started before the fourth quarter. You can go back and look at the Sandrock game. That game's tied in the fourth quarter. We don't know who's going to win that game, but then they put up, I believe it was like 24 points in the fourth quarter against Sandrock, and I think it's really helped them because they were a second half team, but they really need to get started earlier because when this offense clicks, it can put points up in a hurry. I know they run a lot of screens and stuff, and we talked about it earlier. They had trouble this week at North Sand, really just between the wide receivers dropping the ball and overthrown passes and stuff like that. This Pisgah team, I expected them to win this game last week. They have a great quarterback in Audie Smothers. This kid can throw the ball. He's accurate. He can be mobile when he needs to. They've got a great running back in Jordan Jeffries, I believe is his name.
Yes.
This kid can find the end zone. He's a little undersized, but it's not the size of the dog in the fight,
Right.
Well, this kid can find the end zone, and he does it. We go back and look at this game last year. This was a great game last year, and Plainview went on one drive to seal Pisgah's fate. This game was back and forth, and I believe there were like 2 turnovers within like 20 seconds of each other. So this is a great game last year. We know it's Plainview's homecoming, so, that's going to affect them positively or negatively.
Oh, absolutely. I think you're right with this Plainview team. If they can come out of the chute quick and put some points on the board, they've got a great opportunity of winning this football game. I think, we need to see them utilize Dylan Scott on offense more. He is such a big target, and we know Bailey Dukes, we know what he can do at quarterback. So, I think they've got to utilize him a little bit more and maybe, get him out in the flats and just maybe some of those little short, 5, 6, 7, 8 yard passes. And with Pisgah, I think the number one key for Pisgah to be able to win this football game is eliminate turnovers.
Yes.
If they can eliminate those turnovers that they had last week, they've got the talent. Like you said, Audie Smothers is a great quarterback. He can throw the ball. Jordan Jeffries can carry the pigskin, and so this could turn out to be a really, really good football game this week if Pisgah can hang on to the ball, not have the turnovers, and this Plainview team can get some offense going early. That's going to be a great football game. So, next we got the Geraldine Bulldogs. They're sitting at 1-2. They'll be traveling down to Sardis, who is 0-3. I think we talked a little bit about this. Sardis is probably one of those teams that they're setting at 0-3, but they're probably one of the better 0-3 teams in the state. Have a great quarterback. And so what's your thoughts as Geraldine travels down to Sardis this week?
Well, Sardis, you go back and look at that Plainview-Sardis game. Another thing, they were right there with Plainview until the fourth quarter, and Plainview managed to come up with a win. You go back and look at the Sardis-Sylvania game. There was a great game there. Sylvania put a little more points up on them than Plainview did, but that was still in the second half. That first half, it could have been anybody's game. And I really like this Sardis team. We talk about them being 0-3, but, don't let it fool you. If you're Geraldine, on the other hand, with Coach Waldrop, I don't know what they put in the water down there Friday night, but give them some more of it because they came out and they played, and that's just really, I think that's want to. And, Geraldine's used to winning. They're a football town. Right. They're used to being in that, toss-up region, and I really feel like they want to win. So this game, I see it going either way.
Yeah, I think you're exactly right. I think this Geraldine team, we saw improvements over the last couple of weeks, and I know, they had some great skilled people. Their offensive line was a little bit of a question mark for them, but it sounds like Friday night that the offensive line and the defense line stepped up and they made some adjustments and are playing well. So this will be a great football game, and like I said, don't count this 0-3 Sardis team out because they are a better football team than their record indicates at this point of the season. Next, we have New Hope. They'll be traveling up to Sylvania. This game last year, Sylvania traveled over to New Hope. New Hope, all they had to do was win that football game, and they were the area champs, and Sylvania upsets them. And they knocked New Hope from region champ to number 3 in the region. So what's your thoughts as New Hope travels over to Sylvania this week?
We see this, every year between New Hope and Sylvania. This game is going to, in one way or another, decide where these teams are put in the playoffs, whether one of these teams makes the playoff or doesn't. If they win the region or if they don't. Both these teams are you always talk about one of these two in the region championship talk, always. So I think this is really going to affect them more later in the season. For Sylvania to be an impact and to win this game, they have to hold on to the football. We talked about it all last year. They always ended up, shooting themselves in the foot, fumbling on goal lines, jumping off sides. I know their quarterback's hurt right now, Dylan Dykes, and we wish him a speedy recovery and we hope he's back. But one of the reasons they lost last week is they threw an interception on the 5-yard line, I believe it is, right before they go up for the win. You can't do things like that against a New Hope team. They have a great running back and have a great defense. So this is another one that I think could go either way.
Oh, absolutely. This New Hope team, they lost their starting quarterback, but they have their running back from last year, the Cotton kid, who is back again, and, he can carry the mail. But this Sylvania team, they've got somebody who can carry the mail too. The Roebuck kid is a great running back. I'm like you. I think if they can eliminate the mistakes, eliminate the turnovers, they've got a great opportunity to beat this New Hope team this week. So that'll be a great, great football game up at Sylvania Friday night. And, again, this is one of those games, again, a big region game. The winner takes a big step in maybe a region championship, winning this ball game this week. Next, we have Collinsville traveling down to Gaston. Collinsville comes in at 1-2. Gaston comes in at 1-1. Collinsville, again, they were the Mountain Valley News Team of the Week. Grant Jones was the Mountain Valley News Player of the Week. Big victory. They traveled down to Gaston. Gaston put a good whipping on Section. So what do you think Collinsville, my fear with Collinsville would be, hey, we won big this week to a team that, most people felt like we couldn't beat. We're a better football team. We were the Mountain Valley News Team of the Week. We had the Player of the Week, and we had all these things. I guess my point I'm trying to make is, will they let this go to their head?
I hope not, and I don't think they will. I think Collinsville has to stay hungry right now because, they're not used to, they're a good football team, don't get me wrong, but they're not used to being on top of the mountain. I think that they can be as good as they want to be. They have great skill players. They have Dallas Reed, who's a great, he's got speed, one of the fastest kids in the county.
Oh, absolutely.
Tyler Blakely is a great linebacker, and the kid, I was talking about him the other day. They had an injury at the safety position, and he turned around and looked at Coach, and he's their Mike linebacker, and he said, Coach, I can play safety. Put me at safety. Somebody else can play linebacker. And that's really something for a kid to have the football smarts because it is completely different. I promise you, when you go from D-line to linebacker and then from linebacker to safety, all three of them are different worlds. For him just to be able to do that, that really says a lot about him. And they have a great quarterback in Grant Jones, and he can complete passes. They throw screens like normal teams run halfback dives.
Oh, yeah.
I'm a Collinsville fan. I've been a Collinsville fan, and hopefully they stay hungry and they keep winning.
Yeah. If they can keep Grant Jones healthy, he was injured last year late in the season and missed the playoffs, but I think the key is if they can stay healthy, if they can keep Dallas Reed healthy, if they can keep Tyler Blakely healthy, if they can keep Grant Jones healthy, and, they've got the weapons. And it sounds like they're getting a little momentum on the offense and defensive lines where they were very young. They've got a chance of winning some football games. But, I think that, like you say, they've got to stay hungry and they've got to keep a level head and think, hey, that was one football game. We've got a long season ahead of us here. So that'll be a great game down in Gaston this weekend. And I know this Collinsville town is excited about what's going on in Collinsville, and we'll see how that shakes out. Next, we've got the Fife Red Devils. They'll be traveling down to Westbrook Christian. Fife comes in at 2-0. Westbrook Christian is 0-2. And, you look at this on paper, and, and me and you we've talked this for 3 years now. This Fife team, they're loaded. There's no other way to put it. They're loaded on the line. They're loaded in the backfield. They're loaded at quarterback. They're loaded on the sideline.
It's almost just not fair. Can you imagine it being your third game? You can go if you're from Asbury, your third game ever and you're traveling to 5 to play. I mean, they have big fans up at like the NFL where they shoot mist at all the players. They have more coaches than they do players, and they got a lot of players.
Yeah.
I'm telling you, they look like an NFL team, and that had to be so intimidating for that group. But really, I think all 5 has to do against Westbrook is just show up. Don't let them challenge them to a tennis match. That's the only thing I can tell them, because this is a very talented. This may be the best 5 team they've had. I'm talking better than the 2007. I know a lot of people argue with me. I watched film on the 2007 team the other day. I think this is a better 5 team.
Yeah, this 5 team, like you said, is loaded. I know Mashburn has been out injured and not sure what his status is for this week, but he will only make them better when he comes back. And I'm like you. I think this 5 team, if they stay healthy and if they just keep their mind on football, we just like we've said all along, we expect to see them down in Auburn in December. Our next game, and man, this is going to be a huge football game for both of these schools. 0-3 section will be traveling down to 0-2 Asbury. And boy, both of these teams needs a win. Mm-hmm. This section team, Coach Drew Davis, this is his second year at section. And, they struggled last year. They've started out struggling this year. They've got a couple of players that can play football. Dylan Cooper is a great running back. Had a great game last week. Had a good game the week before, and then a good game this last week. They're playing this Asbury team who this is their first time to dress a football team. Yes. So, what's your thoughts on this football game?
Well, I'm happy for both these programs because one of them's getting a win Friday. But, I've got to root for Section in this game. They're a local team. Section is a football town. They used to have a great, great football team, and I think they're trying, to rebuild that. And I think a lot of people don't understand how much time that takes. I think Section is a team that wants to be good, and, it takes a lot to go out and lose. You know what I mean? To stay committed like that. And Section has athletes on this team. I mean, you can go watch a Section basketball game, and they're athletes at Section.
Absolutely.
And, I think this can be a good team, and I feel like Section's going to come away with a win in this one.
Yeah. Next we've got Coleman traveling to Fort Payne. This Fort Payne team is sitting at 0-3. Coleman's at 1-2. One of the stats I saw this week, this is the first time that Fort Payne has been 0-3 since I think maybe the second year that Coach Ellis was started at Fort Payne. He has built a great, great football school, I guess. I don't know what the correct word is here, but, this Fort Payne team is not used to being where they're at right here. Mm-hmm. And but, we did see a lot of improvement this last week. And so what's your thoughts on this Fort Payne team and this Coleman team?
I think this Fort Payne team has talent, and you see the fans or the stands are starting to be a little more empty, but I don't agree with that. I think this is a great Fort Payne team. They're used to winning. It takes time. It's almost crazy to think that you could have a great team every single year. You can look at Fife, where Fife is at right now. They've been on top the past 3 or 4 years, but everyone has down years in between there. You go back to before, around the 2007 era, Fife isn't winning all these region championships. So I think it just takes time. Like with this Fort Payne team, like this year they have a really young team. Next year they're going to have an experienced team. So there's benefits of everything that happens in football. You learn more from a loss than you do a victory. And we see this Fort Payne team, they were trying in that last game. And I think that's all you can ask for is your team to go out there and improve. They were improving. They played a great game. They came up a little short, but they played against a great team.
Oh.
And I feel like they have a good chance to go and get this win this week.
Oh, absolutely. Coach Paul Ellis has done a phenomenal job with this Fort Payne Wildcats. And, I don't expect anything less. He will work this team. They will improve each week, just as we saw this week, how they have improved. And, if I can say anything, let me say to the Fort Payne fans, the Fort Payne community, do not get down on this football team. There's still a lot of football to play this year, and this team is improving weekly. And, it takes one victory. You get that one victory, just like North Sand Mountain did last year when they beat Plainview. and it's amazing what kind of role you can get on, and he's playing with a lot of young kids. We start talking about his son. His son is a 10th grader this year. He's not
playing 5A.
Yeah, playing 5A football. He's starting 2 10th graders. He's starting 2 9th graders. But they are improving. So, and this week you'll see more improvement out of them. And this is going to be a great football game down in Fort Payne this week. I think this could be one of those games that can go either way. Mm-hmm. I think it will be a great football game. Next, we've got Jacksonville Christian. They'll be traveling up to Valley Head this week. Jacksonville Christian comes in. They're sitting at 1-1. Valley Head is sitting at 0-2. But, this Valley Head team has got talent. They've got a great running back in Devin Leaps. They've got a great lineman in Justin Blansett, who I think, is probably one of the top linemen in this area. So, what's your thoughts on Jacksonville Christian? What does Valley Head need to do to get back and maybe get on a winning streak this week and try to get that first victory?
Well, Valley Head, they have some positive points. We talked to their coach last week, and he talked about how well their defense played. And their defense, I want to say, their defense didn't give up a touchdown. I know they did, wasn't really their fault.
Right.
I mean, the other team starting out on the 15-yard line. This Valley Head team has talent, and, Valley Head's a smaller school, so it's a little harder to find talent there, but they have it. And, I really suspect their record to get better throughout the year the more they play. I feel like they're still kind of young as well.
Yeah, I think you're right. Next, we got 0-2 Brindley Mountain. They'll be traveling up to Higdon to play the North Sand Mountain Bisons. North Sand Mountain's sitting at 1-1, but don't let this 1-1 record scare you, because this North Sand Mountain team is a good football team. They played Dade County, in week 1 and carried them to the wire. Came back, scored about three touchdowns in the fourth quarter to cut that to 2 points and had a chance to win the football game. But, this North Sand Mountain team, big victory over Plainview for the second straight year. And, I look for this North Sand Mountain team to just improve and keep winning. So what's your thoughts on this?
We watched this team really develop and progress last year. They made it all the way to play Madison Academy, the state runner-up, I believe. This is a great team. I think they got a lot of returners back. Watching them play Plainview, they played a great game against Plainview, and they came away with the upset. I can't even call it an upset no more because they did it last year. Right. I hate to pick against this team because they continue to surprise me and get better every week. And Brindley Mountain, you don't want to talk down about them. They're a struggling program, but I can remember playing against them. They always have one kid that looks like he could play for the New York Jets or something. Yeah. Seems like they always have a 300-pound lineman or something like that. So there's always some talent in every school.
Oh, absolutely. Next we're going to jump into the college games. We got 2 this week. We're going to talk about Western Kentucky comes in at 1-0, starting a new quarterback this year. He threw for 5 touchdown passes last week against Rice. Alabama, of course, we know what they did coming in and putting a whipping on Southern Cal 52-6. So what's your thoughts as Alabama, plays against this Western Kentucky team, which most people think, Alabama should just walk away with this game?
Mm-hmm. I think Alabama really has to stay awake in this. And you know what I mean? Look at Tennessee, Appalachian State, almost upsetting them there. So many schools, Auburn, JSU last year, so many schools have been knocked off by, I don't want to say a nobody team, but a JUCO or a team like that or D2 because they didn't pay attention. They looked past them on the schedule and they focused on the next week. And I don't think Alabama will do that because there's a fella named Nick Saban down there.
Oh, absolutely.
He's a pretty good coach if y'all know who that is.
Yeah, one of the things, each year, Nick Saban usually will come down on the press, and it's usually in a game like this where, somebody will make the statement, well, Coach, you're not really playing anybody this week, and so, what you're going to be looking ahead, I guess, to playing Ole Miss next week, and so what's your thoughts on that? And he just lets them have it. Mm-hmm. A lot of times I think he does that, not necessarily scolding the media or bashing the media, but he wants to get the attention of his players because he knows they're watching, and he wants to make sure that they know, hey, this team we're playing is not a bad football team, and I don't think this Western Kentucky team is that bad.
No.
So it's going to be a great game. our last game, we got Arkansas State. We'll be traveling to Auburn. Arkansas State comes in at 0-1, Auburn 0-1, but this Auburn team, we talked about it. They played a great Clemson team, and and held their own with them. They lost that game 19-13, and could have very well won that football game. Had chances at the end of the game to win it. So what's your thought as they play this Arkansas State team?
Well, we watched them play Jacksonville State last year, and I was at that game, and I was going crazy because Jacksonville State almost pulled the upset of the century. But just like with Alabama, I think they really need to stay awake. Auburn's defense played great against Clemson. You talk about, they probably have the Heisman winner in their quarterback. Yeah. That's a great offense from Clemson. They held them to 19 points, I believe it was.
That's correct.
But they have a really great offense. What they're going to have to work on, they have a really great defense. What they're going to have to work on is their offense. And I feel like this is kind of a week. They feel a little down. They're a little mad at themselves. So I feel like Auburn's really, going to put the foot to the gas pedal. And I feel like there'll be a big score at the end of this in Auburn's favor.
Yeah, I think you're right. I think this team will really work on their offensive schemes, and they're working on their quarterback and getting him comfortable, whoever that's going to be, and try to settle on a quarterback, maybe, and get somebody in there and get a little offense generating. Well, we've talked about all the games this week, and now it's that time of the day where we get to pick them. So let's just start at the beginning here. We've got Arab will be traveling up to Crossville. Who you got in this one?
I thought this was a really tough pick. I love what this Crossville team is doing and what they're turning this program into, and I would love to see them get the win just because of how hard they're working for it. You can tell this team is improving, but I really feel like Coach Gilbert's going to have Arab ready, and Arab's going to be too much for him.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think this Crossville team, I've been very impressed with what they have done. I think this game will be a lot closer than maybe some people think. When you look at this game, it could be a field goal or a 7-point game. I think Coach Gilbert, has done a great job down at Arab. He's familiar with Crossville from his time at Geraldine, and so I think you'll see this Crossville team play well, but I think in the end you'll see Arab win this football game. Next, we've got Sandrock. We'll be traveling to Ider. This Ider team, man, they need a victory after a surprise loss, I guess, if you want to say this from last week. So who are you picking in this one?
Oh, my girlfriend's going to be mad at me. And sorry, Courtney, but I'm going to have to pick against your Sandrock Wildcats. I feel like, Coach Tinker, he's too good of a coach. He seems like he always has his team ready. You look at them in that first half, they were on the ball, and they were playing great. And I feel like Ider's going to win this game.
I'm going with Ider, too. I just think Coach Tinker, he does a phenomenal job with Ider, and I know he is working that team hard this week to make sure they get back on the winning track. So I look for Ider to have a big game this week. Next, we've got Pisgah traveling to Plainview. Both come in after heartbreaking losses last week, I guess you can say. So who are you picking in this one?
This game last year was a great football game. I covered it last year, and it was like down to the wire. Plainview went on one drive to win it. Pisgah really surprised me last week, losing so big to Geraldine, and I think Plainview at least made a game of it. And for that reason, and plus it's at Plainview, I'm going with the Bears.
I'm going with Plainview, too. I really think this could be one of the closest games of the week. If Pisgah eliminates the turnovers, I think they've got a chance of upsetting this Plainview team, if we want to call that an upset. But, it's homecoming at Plainview. Plainview's coming off a loss. They want to get back on the winning track, and I'm going to say Plainview in a squeaker against Pisgah this week.
A squeaker. I like it.
Next, we've got Geraldine. They'll be traveling down to Sardis. Who are you picking in this one?
This is another tough one for me. Geraldine's coming off a huge win. I don't know how they did it, but they did it. Hopefully they have a little bit of that magic left in the tank for this week. But I don't think lightning strikes twice. I'm going to go with Sardis.
Oh. Well, I'm going to go with the Geraldine Bulldogs. I just feel like that Coach Waldrop's got this team ready. His skilled players played well for him this week. It seems like the offensive line is starting to gel a little bit and opening up some holes. And I just feel like Geraldine is ready to start, playing Geraldine football again. So I'm going with Geraldine Bulldogs in this game. Next, and this is going to be one of the better football games of the week, I do think. New Hope at Sylvania. Who you got in this one?
I really feel like the winner of this game is going to be second in the region, if I can call that this early. But this really will decide the region, and it's a must-win for both these teams. I feel like Sylvania's going to win for the sole reason I feel like Coach Putnam's going to make these boys run all week because of the game they had, because they almost beat the state champion or state runner-ups from last year, and they're going to be tired of it, and they're not going to want to run again next week. So I'm going to go with the Sylvania Rams.
I'm going with Sylvania too. I just think the talent they have, the shape that they're in, and all the good things that's going on. I just feel like this Sylvania team, they're due. And they're due to play a good game without some turnovers. I think they have had a couple of those, but I just feel like this is their year, and I'm going with the Sylvania Rams to beat the New Hope Indians. Next, we got Collinsville traveling down to Gaston. Collinsville's coming off of the big win. Who are you picking in this one?
Oh, I told you earlier I'm a Collinsville fan, and I really feel like they're going to win this game. They have too many great skill players, and if they can get that ball spread out into the corner like you talked about earlier, I think they're a tough team to beat.
Yeah, I'm going with Collinsville too. I think, as you say, their skilled players are phenomenal. Coach Ernie Willingham has got this team going in the right direction right now, so I think we'll see a big win from the Collinsville Panthers this week as they travel down to Gaston. Next, Fife travels down to Westbrook Christian.
I think Fife's going to win this one. I have a gut feeling.
I'm going with the Fife Red Devils. I just feel like, it's going to be I'm going to tell you right now, this is early in the season, but I'm going to make this prediction. It'll be hard for me to pick against Fife through 15 games this year. So
that's a pretty gutsy move. I might have to call you on that one.
All right, next we've got Section. They'll be traveling down to Asbury, and man, both of these programs needs a victory. So who are you picking in this one?
I'm picking the Section Lions. It may be the only time I say it, but I'm saying it. I want them to get a win.
I think you're exactly right. I'm going with Section. I just feel like they've got a little more talent, a little more experience behind them from years past in the program. Asbury with starting a new program up, I just think Section will be a little too much for them, but that'll be a great football game. Next, we have Coleman traveling to Fort Payne. Who are you picking in this one?
I've been back and forth with this one all week. I actually changed my pick right before we started the show. I have one highlighted and scribbled through and the other one underlined. So I think Fort Payne pulls off the win. I think they're due, like we talked about earlier. They showed promise in their last game, and I feel like that hopefully they're going to squeak by and get this win.
Yeah. Well, I'm going with Coleman. I really think Fort Payne has a great opportunity to win this week. I hope they prove me wrong, but I'm picking Coleman to win the football game. Next, we have Jacksonville Christian at Valley Head. Who you got in this one?
I'm going to go with Jacksonville Christian. Valley Head has a great defense, but their offense is struggling, so I'm going to go with Jacksonville Christian.
I'm going with the Valley Head Tigers on this one. I think they're due. I feel like Devin Leaps, he is due a breakout game, so I'm picking Valley Head to win it this week. Brindley Mountain at North Sun Mountain.
Roll hard.
Oh, absolutely. I look for a North Sun Mountain to win big this week. After a big victory at Plainview, I think they just continue to roll, and I think they win big.
Yes.
All right, now we're jumping into the college games. You got Western Kentucky traveling to Alabama for a 2:30 kickoff. Who are you picking in this one?
Oh, I think Alabama's. Hopefully, they're going to be awake, and I think they're just way too talented for a very good Western Kentucky team, but they're not in Alabama's league.
Absolutely. I'm going with Alabama. You look at this Western Kentucky team. They beat a Rice team last week, but Rice is not Alabama.
Yes,
and Alabama's defense is the best in the nation at this point, and I think Bama will roll. Last and not least, but we have Arkansas State traveling down to Auburn. Who are you picking in this one?
I know Auburn got beat last week, and I feel like that's going to be an eye-opener for them. I feel like they're going to try to make this a statement game, and they're going to put up a whole bunch of points on poor Arkansas State, and it's not even their fault. It's Clemson. But I feel like Auburn is going to come out on top in this one.
Oh, absolutely. I think Auburn wins big in this game. I think they need to want to make a statement, as you say, and show people, hey, we've got a good football team. Don't count us out quite yet. So there you go. You have our picks for the week. We've broken down all the games for you, and it's going to be another exciting week of high school football, another exciting week of college football. We thank you so much for tuning in and watching this show. And it's going to be exciting, and we hope all of you get out and support your local teams. Yes. And root them on, and we look forward to being back here next week, breaking down and picking the games again. So God bless each one of you. We hope you have a great week.